I didn't push the buttons good. I would like to call the July 12th of 2016 meeting of the Salem Keizer School Board to order. Would you please rise and repeat after me the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we'll do roll call. Paul Kylo.
Here.
Chris Brantley.
Here.
Marty Hyen.
Here.
Jim Green.
Here.
Chuck Lee is not here yet. He intends to be here. Nancy McMorris-Oddix.
Here.
And Rick Kimball here. Okay. See, as far as agenda modifications, we have none tonight, so we'll proceed through the agenda. And for the record, Chuck is here now. Okay. We'll have no modifications tonight. We'll go into the agenda. First is Spotlights on Success. We're taking a hiatus for the summer, so we have none tonight. Next is audience communications on agenda items, and there are none. Okay. Thank you, Mike. So we'll go on to number 3, there are action items. We've got 3 action items tonight. The first is the election of board chair, and then we'll continue on from there. And if we do need ballots, Paul has ballots available for the elections. Chris.
I need to make a statement before we start into this. This board has policy that says that we need to make statements about things that are not personal, and as we are about to elect our board chair, it's going to become about a person very soon. Last year we have that's really good policy. I like that policy, and last year we had a debate about another set of policy around the ideas that this board should be learning on a regular basis from experts in the field of education and otherwhere about the future lives of kids and what we're preparing them to do so that we can have better discussions around outcomes that we measure and how we measure them, and that we would have regular and ongoing proactive strategies to communicate with the people who elected us. We chose last year as a board to get rid of that policy and replace it with policy that makes that sort of still possible but not required. And I so disagree with that decision that I can't vote yes for anybody who voted yes for that change when we get to the process of electing a chair. So I just wanted to say up front that when I vote no, or if I vote no, it will be for that reason and that reason alone.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, our first item is election of board chair for the coming year, 2016 to 17. Paul Kine.
I nominate Nancy McMorris-Oddix. Second.
Second by Jim Green. Any other nominations for board chair? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the nominations. We have one nominee, and all in favor of Nancy serving as board chair for the coming year, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, so we have 6-1. Thank you, and I'll turn the gavel over to Nancy.
Do I move or?
Yeah, let's move.
Yeah, we're supposed to also move your nameplate for the sake of the TV, too.
Thanks. Well, thank you all, and importantly, before we move on to the next step, I would like to thank Rick for his service. He's led this board for quite a number of years, off and on, and I think he's done a great job, and he's taught me a lot about how to run a meeting, how to make sure voices are heard, and I appreciate that, and I want to thank him for his service. Election of board vice chair. Rick?
I would like to nominate Vice Chair Paul Kylo to continue in that role.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I think we'll proceed to the vote. All in favor of Paul Kylo as vice chair for the coming years signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Aye.
sign.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote carries 6-1. The next action item on our agenda is the appointment of legal counsel for 2016-17. So in the board plate, we have information on the fact that the law firm of Garrett Heeman Robertson has been representing the school board and the district since 1986. And Paul DeCopolos of the same firm has been working with the district since the early 1990s. By the board governance policy BG 10.2, we're required to name an attorney for the school district to provide professional legal counsel advice to the superintendent, staff, and school board. The district has designated legal services as a class of contracts that are personnel services contracts in administrative policy PUR-A001. This is consistent with ORS 279A.055 sub 2. Personnel service contracts are exempted from the public contracting code pursuant to ORS 279A.025 sub 2 and 279A.055. It's been the practice of the school board to reappoint legal counsel at their first regular business meeting in July. The board leadership recommends that we reappoint. Jim?
I move that the board reappoint Paul DeCopolos and the law firm of Garrett Heeman Robertson as legal counsel to the Salem Keizer School Board.
I'll second it.
I was gonna say.
It's been moved and seconded. Paul?
I would like to hear the motion again a little slower. I have a question about one word.
Whether we're, I can restate it. My motion was to reappoint Paul DeCopolos and the law firm of Garrett Heeman Robertson as legal counsel to the school board. If it is more appropriate to have it be just the firm, I'm happy to amend my motion.
I was just going to say the word of instead of and.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a difference, but that's all I was concerned about. So I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
Marty?
I'm just curious if it is an and because Paul is usually here, but we get some of the other people that are a part of the firm. So it's just not Paul that we are having a contract with. It is the firm, and he's just the designated person that comes to our meetings. Is that right?
Yeah.
So let me make my motion clear, Madam Chair. I would recommend that the school board reappoint Paul DeCopolos and the law firm of Garrett Heeman Robertson as legal counsel to the Salem Keizer School Board.
And
The second's still the
you're
same?
fine with the second?
Yes, but I thought that's what it said.
I thought
Yeah.
it was too, but.
Is there discussion? Paul?
I believe that it should be of, because we are hiring the firm and Paul is of the firm. My understanding is the contract says that we can have other representatives here from the firm. I mean, it is Paul that we usually see, but he's part of the firm. And so, anyway, I think it should be of.
Well, Madam Chair, may I ask our legal counsel what they believe the motion is?
Yeah, there we go.
You may certainly do that.
Well, it's both, because I am of a firm, I'm not
Right.
an individual, and there, you're also hiring a firm, and there's other people in the firm, so
Right.
you could say of and in the firm. The idea is, this is a team approach.
Right.
And you do use others within the firm.
Yeah.
Might I suggest we just vote on it the way you said it, and then if it goes down, we'll mess with of?
I think the intent here, Madam Chair, is that we are hiring the firm of Garrett Heeman Robertson as our legal counsel. Paul attends our board meetings, but we have Kim Hoyt, we have Kevin Schuba, we have Rebecca Jacobson, we have a variety of attorneys within that firm handle work for the district depending on the bucket of work that those attorneys do in the law firm. Paul just happens to sit at our board meetings with us and serves as general counsel overall, and overall probably sees the client, but I think the general idea is we're hiring Garrett Heeman Robertson as our legal counsel. Paul is our main contact with that firm, but all the other lawyers within that firm work for us and with us over a period of the year.
Marty?
So then I think you either need to remove Paul's name totally and just say we're hiring the firm, or maybe we need to say we're hiring Paul of the name of the firm and other associates as assigned from the firm. Because it is other people too, even though Paul is usually the one that's here.
Chuck?
I hate to get into semantics, but I think this motion is really clear. Paul is the guy that we rely on meeting in and meeting out, and he does a great job. And we're very lucky to have him and his counsel here, and the law firm is available to us too. So I would just kind of say that I think the motion that's on the table hits it perfectly right on the nose.
Paul?
And I just want to confirm that the retainer amount and the other fees within the contract, which we didn't get a current contract, are the same as the contract we were sent, which was from the year before.
It is.
Okay, I just wanted that, to make sure that was clear.
All in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the consent calendar. We usually take these all as one. If anyone needs to pull something, Paul?
I move to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have readings. The first, the only reading is on the revision of Board Policy EL5. This is a recommendation of a change that was, my understanding is made by board leadership after the last conversation at the board meeting about the superintendent's contract. So what's being inserted into the EL5 under staff compensation and professional development is a new item number 4 that prohibits the superintendent from changing the percentage increase used for step increases on employees' salary schedules without approval by the school board. Questions?
I just want to make the comment, and that is that obviously is in direct response to something I said during the meeting about what could happen that I didn't think would, and that covers it.
Other comments? This is just a first reading, so it will come back to us in August for further discussion. Next thing on the agenda is reports, and we have the monitoring report, EL1, Global Executive Constraint. Christy?
This is the first of 12 monitoring reports, so we're officially starting our next year. And this is scheduled for the 16-17 school year and is designed to provide the school board with information to determine if I am meeting the criteria established within the adopted executive limitations. This is executive limitation number 1, Global Executive Constraint. And as the superintendent shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational condition which is unlawful, unethical, unsafe, disrespectful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted business and professional ethics and practices and board policy. We do have a number of internal and external processes that help us monitor our organization. But all of those have come out fine. We do have one evidence of non-compliant that we've already reported on to you once, but we've brought it out again in this EL1, and that's around purchasing. We do have a system in place that monitors our schools, and every now and then a school steps out of the purchasing process, and this was one of those violations. So we've put, again, the training back into the school, and are working to make sure this doesn't happen again. So that's the end of this report on executive limitation number 1.
Questions? Chris?
You've already answered one. I have 2 questions. One was, is this the same one we already saw? And you just answered that. The other is, if something like this were to happen and somebody were to call us on it, who would that somebody be and what are the possible consequences?
So I'm going to look at Michael. And did you hear the question? Okay.
So, but if I could ask it differently to make sure I understand it. So if, like, for instance, someone violated the 3-quote process, who would catch it and what would the consequences be?
Yeah, who's the authority that gave us that mandate that happened? You know, in other words, the mandatory bidding process that's part of our law
Right.
is a law. Somebody's got to be monitoring that in some way.
Right.
Who is that somebody? And if they were to say you blew it and you're in violation, is it a fine? Is it
Right.
Christie goes to jail? What is it?
Right. Well, a couple of things, and then I'll let Paul kick in because I can see
He's ready.
he's got an answer as well. First of all, we have internal controls that we've mentioned before, and our purchasing department is really the lead department for all of the procurement functions within the district. So as requisitions come through, those are monitored daily by staff, and that's when we find out when we get like in this case, we had a requisition to pay someone, but we never went through the 3-quote process to determine how much to pay them. So that's when we caught it. And as far as a fine, there aren't fines associated with this necessarily. You have to have internal processes in place, though, we go through CAFR process, our financial auditing system every year. And so those also provide additional controls to make sure that we're following the laws and our own internal processes and procedures.
So there's 3 central sources of challenge to this kind of an issue. The dollar amount's not high enough to warrant a bid protest challenge, so that under ORS 279, A, B, and C, there's a process for challenging an award of a contract if it's not bid in the proper way. And there's different levels of how it must be bid based upon the dollar amount. So this would not hit a bid protest process, but if the dollar amount were higher, it could. So someone who didn't get the contract could challenge the award of the contract. Number 2 is a taxpayer lawsuit. So if someone could prove that the amount was not authorized ultimately under a budget item, it's conceivable that a taxpayer could claim that whoever signed the contract is personally responsible for it. So that's the second thing. The third is the auditing process. So this could have a consequence if it were a repeated problem with your auditors. And it is not a repeated problem, but that is how auditors get the attention of school districts on their processes, is to comment on it in the public audit and then report that to the board.
Thank you.
Paul?
I confess, I believe the superintendent is doing a fine job. I, however, have issues with the way Executive Limitation 1, global executive constraint, is worded. I've shared this before. I believe it is too expansive, simply because the superintendent may not allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational condition which is unlawful, unethical, unsafe, disrespectful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted business and professional ethical and practices and board policy. I don't know how, unless she is omniscient, which she may be, omnipresent, which I don't think she is, because she complains about her calendar sometimes, how she can be taking care of all of this to see that none of it's being allowed. And I think during our retreat, we need to look at somehow rephrasing this particular constraint.
Other questions or comments? We usually signify with a thumbs up if we accept this.
I just have one thing real quick, Nancy. One thing I'd ask, we've changed or we're looking at changing our executive limitations, and we've changed our policies. My manual that I was given when I was first put on the board is significantly out of date. Would it be possible to have our most up-to-the-date one given to school board members? So we're looking at I know it's online, but I don't have a device that's my own personal one that I bring to the school board meetings. I do, but I probably can't read it. So if we could have current ones, that would be really helpful so that we can look at the overall language. And I know Mary's not here, but I saw Christy taking notes. That'd be really helpful, because I've tried to hand do it in the one I've got, but it'd be really helpful to have updated ones.
So I'll just remind the board that these executive limitations are part of the superintendent's evaluation. And I saw thumbs. Yes, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is the information on page 7A. I believe there's a list of upcoming board meetings, and I would remind everyone that we are scheduled for our summer planning session from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on July 26th. With the August board meeting of August 9th. Questions? Okay. Is there audience communication on non-agenda items?
No.
Okay, great, thanks. Board report on activities. Anyone? Jim?
So I missed the last school board meeting. I just wanted to give you two quick updates. I attended the Sprague High School graduation again this year. Larry Ramirez, our director of high schools, was there with me. We survived a little bit of the rain at the beginning of it. It was very well done. They've had some losses of students out there, so there was some recognition with regard to the loss of the students out there. But the gift that the senior class gave, if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you go see it. As a Sprague graduate, we've always, they always light the torch at the end of the football field. And it was this old wrought iron torch, or it was carried in. They gave a beautiful hand-constructed steel new torch that has the S with the torch going through it, and it lights up, and it was lit there at the graduation. It's a really cool symbol of Sprague High School, and back to when it was founded in 1972. And Craig, the principal out there, was really proud of it, and so were the kids. It's a really cool-looking torch. So if you get to go to a Friday football game at Sprague, they'll light it there, and they light it at other ceremonies. So it was really cool. The other thing, the reason I missed that board meeting was I was in Washington, D.C. Nancy, you've traveled with me there before with school board members from across the state, talking to our congressional delegation, and I can say we met with each and every one of them. We had breakfast with our U.S. senators back in the Capitol, and interestingly enough, one of the things that each and every one of the meetings that I was in, I went to the two senators meeting, I met with Representative Schrader, I met with Representative Walden and Representative Bonamici. To a T, each one of those five people mentioned our Career Technical Education Center as a guiding, shining light of how to redo a CTE program in Oregon. Several of them have said they have visited it. The others that hadn't been there yet want to get it on their calendar. So I'm going to put them in touch with Chuck, their staff people in touch with Chuck, and with our principal out there. But it was really kind of cool, even though I was there with staff, to hear our U.S. senators and our folks mention our Career Tech Education Center as one of the bright spotlights of what we're doing in the state of Oregon for career tech ed. So congratulations to Chuck, to this board, and to our program out there at CTech. Our elected officials have taken notice of it and talked to their compadres about it, and there are folks who want to come see it. Suzanne Bonamici is going to try to get a committee hearing out here in Oregon, so. Good.
Great, thanks, Jim. Anybody else? Chuck? Chris?
I just wanted to mention that I was appointed to one of the State Department's ESSA work groups, which is they were groups of people that got together. It's about 125 people total from around the state. About 6 were school board members, and our job was to make recommendations about how the state of Oregon responds to the ESSA law, which is the new rewrite of No Child Left Behind. And our work is complete now, and we've made recommendations as the 4 work groups to a, I'll call it a super committee, and our superintendent is on that super committee, and that group will then take all those recommendations and start formulating that into our plan as a state for how to respond to the new freedoms we get under the ESSA. And so I was pretty encouraged by the process and the kinds of things we came up with. I was on the educator effectiveness work group, which really looked at Senate Bill 290 and the rules that had been written because of that around teacher evaluation and administrator evaluation. So that's the part I worked on. But there were also things on standards, on assessments, and on school improvement, and how to identify schools that need improvement and how to offer them the support they need. So, neat process.
Great. Chuck?
You know, I think all of us have been watching the news over the last couple of weeks with all the violence we've had in our country, with the different issues involving Dallas and Minnesota and others, and you know, kind of the outpouring of support that many communities are stepping up with as far as supporting local law enforcement people and everything else. And I know that we don't have it on the agenda as far as a resolution or whatever, but I think what I'd like to encourage board leadership to do is to perhaps come back to the August meeting with a resolution that speaks to the fact that we are very blessed in this community with the support that we've had from the Marion County Sheriff's Office, the Salem Police Department, and the Keizer Police Department as strong partners for everything that we're doing within our schools. And I think it would be really appropriate at this point in time in our country's history, and just in light of the divisiveness that's going on, as a school board, to take a stance with them and publicly thank them for, you know, their support and everything that they're doing to help our school district. So I don't know if it's you know, appropriate to ask other board members if you would be willing to have board leadership look into doing something like that for the next meeting or not, or just to leave it with board leadership. But I'm not sure what the protocol is, but I would encourage us to, as a body, to step up and thank the Marion County Sheriff's Office, the Salem Police Department, and the Keizer Police Department for everything that they're doing for our students.
I think that sounds like a great idea. Just don't put the word democracy in there, because we are not one. Thank you.
I have another, he reminded me of something.
Chris?
I just wanted to say, you were talking about a board action. I was at the SCEF board meeting at noon today, and one of the things that came up is that SCEF has now added a guiding principle to their work around equity and the use of the equity lens that was adopted by the OEIB back when it was the OEIB. And Karina mentioned that it really would help some of the grants that they write if their key partner, the Salem Keizer School District, were to also adopt the equity lens. That's us, the school board would do that. And so I just wanted to put that on your agenda too to think about.
Rick?
I want to take this time to thank my 6 colleagues up here for your support these last 2 years as I led this group. Each and every one of you stepped up when you needed to and supported the work we were doing, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You demand.
Did you say demand or did you say demand?
Both.
I'll leave it at that.
Any other reports? Okay, so I think we now hear the superintendent's comments.
All right, I just have a couple quick comments, and I did want to say thank you to Rick as well, because we're all thanking Rick tonight. But most importantly, because he was on this journey of Jim being the board chair when you hired me, but Rick kind of stepping in and guiding me and helping me through that first year. So he really has great insight and thoughtfulness about all the work that the board does. And so anytime I picked up the phone, he never complained, but was always offered just some really great and thoughtful insight. So thank you for that. A couple other things. We are in the middle of, not in the middle, we're starting our water testing. So just know that. When you do water testing, it requires you to close some schools for about 8 to 24 hours. And so there'll be a little bit of that chatter out there when some schools are closed. And also, we have a number of people, which is why we are a little light in attendance of cabinet members tonight, that are back in Maryland at a emergency response training, and they are developing some of our emergency response plans back there. This is a FEMA paid for training and workshop, so that's what they're up to, and more to follow on that. But it's a good team of people back there. And then finally, and you'll hear this in one of the spotlights, but our communication department has again received a couple national awards. So we'll be hearing that in one of our spotlights in the future.
Great. Now I think we are going to have a recess and move to hearing on the formal complaint.
And I think we could reset in about 5 minutes if you want to. It won't
Hey.
take us long.
5 minutes.
They did that